Hello, my name is Inge de Dreu. I work with entrepreneurs, I work with projects, mentoring them, accompanying them, and today I'm going to talk to you a bit about the Playground for Entrepreneurs, which is a new methodology that is focusing on early phase entrepreneurship. So it's for people that basically haven't had any contact yet with methodologies of entrepreneurship, and it's, well, as you can see, based on the senses. So it introduces concepts and guidelines for other entrepreneurship methodologies, such as the business model canvas and lean startup and lean launchpad, which will be very much easier to assimilate after this. Right, so this is a first step. This is a first validation, what we call a validation, and it's about making more sure that your idea, your project is going to work as you think it is in the real world. So every time you take a step towards that, right? So these are the senses. Basically, you can start with any of the peripheral elements, which is the heart, the ear, the eye, or the hand. I'm going to start with the heart, because the heart is where most people will start who are passionate about something, who really want to do something. For example, high school students or university students. So this is maybe going to be the most common part to start, but you can start in any of these. Right? The important thing is that you complement with the other elements. So the heart is all about passion. It's all about an interesting theme or an interesting thought that you want to work on. This is really what is about motivation and inspiration, and this is going to be your gasoline for afterwards. Right? So this is going to get you through bad times, through difficult moments, and this is what your motivation is going to be about. So it's very important to know for yourself in a very personal context, why are you doing this? Why is this motivating or inspiring you? So that's what the heart is all about. And then afterwards we go to the ear. The ear is about interviews. Right, so you need to listen. You need to listen outside to see if what you think is a problem is really actually a problem, or if it may work differently. Right? If what you're thinking is in line with what your clients are experiencing. So there's two kinds of people that you need to take into account basically for these interviews. Right? So there's customers and there's experts. Right? Customers, you need to know what your customers are doing. Right? You need to know what kind of problem or what kind of desire they're experiencing, just to base what you're doing, your product or your service, on what they actually think is happening. Right? And experts, because you need they usually have a lot of experience in the sector and they usually know how it works. So you really need to take that into account as well. It's very important to talk to a lot of people, right? Enough to have like a sample that's kind of worthwhile, and not to base your opinion on only one person's, to base your business model on only one person's opinion. So that's very important to take into account. Then we go to the eye, right? And the eye is about context. Right? Context and competition. It's about observation. Right? So you need to see what's going on out in the market and also in the context in which people would use your product or service, or they would buy it. Right? The context could be a very permanent context, right? The way people live or the way people work, which is the same every day basically, or a very temporary context. For example, if you're selling umbrellas, well, they will sell a lot better if it's raining, right? So that's the context that you need to take into account. How are people going to use this product or service? And the competition that you find in the market. Right? There's always entrepreneurs that tell me, no, my product is so good, it doesn't have any competition. Well, there's always, it may not be direct competition, but there's always substitutes. right? And they are there. They might not do a very good job, right? Which gives you a big opportunity in the market. But you need to take them into account because people are using it and it somehow exists, right? So you're watching your competition, looking at your competition locally, but also internationally, to take them into account and to make sure that you're going to be different somehow, better or different in any way, which makes a difference in the market. So now we'll go to the hand, and the hand, it's about experiments. Right? So experimenting with the market, you don't only need to know how people talk about what you're going to do, but you also need to see how they act around that. Right? So you can do different experiments. Of course, this also sometimes implies prototyping, right? Making prototypes, testing prototypes with customers, and experimenting how it actually would work and how people act upon what you're doing. So these are the 4 peripheral elements. And once you get like a minimum of information, you go towards the center. And the center is the brain, right? So this is where you kind of land your ideas. And it has, as such, 3 elements, which is what are you doing, right? What's your product, service? What kind of benefits do you bring to your customers? And who do you do it for? That's this one, right? Who's your market segment? Who's your client? What's his archetype? What are they really about? And why? Why would they even care? Why would they buy your product? Why would it be, well, good for them and useful for them? So it's very important to get like a coherence between these 3, right? You're not going to sell Ferraris in a neighborhood that's very socially low class, right? Because it's not going to work. So you really need to create a coherence here, and you need to work with both levels, right? So once you get this, then you go back to the peripheral elements and you go check if it's true. You go check if it's right what you're thinking, and you change upon what you find. Right? If you find in your interviews that something's not right, well, you change your business model on that. So that way you get every time more coherence, and it allows you to develop really your business models. Don't be afraid to change. If you find that maybe what you're thinking is not going to work, then it's better to change now than to change later, because you might have done a bigger investment, you might have invested time and effort as well. And the earlier on that you know, the better you can change, the better it is to take those lessons into account. You might also find an opportunity that's bigger than what you thought it would be. Well, then you can change as well and take that into account, and you can create something that's a lot bigger and a lot more vital as a business or as a project. Right? So it's very important to take into account that it's a very dynamic model, and you go from the inside to the outside and back to the inside and back to the outside, and you let the validation have its influence in what you think you're going to do, right? And for whom you're doing it based on what need or problem or desire in the market. So this is the playground for entrepreneurs. I hope this information was useful for you. Please let me know. You can reach me on Twitter, right, at Inge de Dreu. I hope this has been good. Thank you.